on everybody's mind, and it is The Secrets of Happiness. So, as you know, I've written many books, and one of them, of course, is called The Ultimate Happiness Prescription. And there are people who are now talking about something called the happiness formula. So, for lack of a better word, that's not a bad place to begin with. The happiness formula. What does it mean? So, social scientists have actually created something called the happiness formula. And here it goes: H is equal to S plus C plus V. H is equal to S plus C plus V. H stands for happiness, is equal to S. S stands for set point in the brain, which determines 50% of your happiness experience every day. What is the set point? Happy people see opportunities, unhappy people see problems. How is the set point determined? Through childhood conditioning, the conditioned mind. If your parents, caretakers were unhappy, constantly criticizing, complaining, condemning, playing the victim, then because as a baby, you mirror the neurons of your caretakers, unfortunately, you grow up to be an unhappy person. If your parents were always paying attention, giving you affection, appreciation, acceptance, you grow up to be a happy person. How can you change the set point? Through self-reflection, through self-inquiry, through meditation, through mindfulness. So that's the first thing to remember, the set point. H is equal to S plus C. C is conditions of living, and that could be economic conditions of living, which add about 10% to your happiness experience every day. So if you win the lottery, you'll be very happy in the beginning. In 6 months, you'll plateau. In 1 year, you return to your set point. And then the last part of the formula, H is equal to S plus C plus V, is voluntary choices that we make every day. There are two kinds of choices we make every day. Personal choices for what should we say, pleasure, alcohol, entertainment, movies, sex, food, shopping. And then there are choices that bring us fulfillment. So choices that we make for personal pleasure make us happy, but not for long. In a few days, we have to repeat the experience. So then what happens is we get into the habit of wanting pleasure all the time, which can lead to addiction. Pleasure by itself is not harmful. But there are other choices. If you make somebody else happy by giving them attention, appreciation, affection, acceptance, we instantly become happy. The fastest way to be happy is to make another person happy. There are other choices make us happy, which are called choices to give us fulfillment. Fulfillment. When we have meaning, purpose, a higher calling, then also that makes us happy. And relatively, that's a much more effective way to be happy, to be contented, to find meaning and purpose in life. But today, I want to talk about something even more important. You can have all the best relationships in life. You can be in perfect health. You can have lots of money. But ultimately, everybody gets old at some point. Almost everybody gets some infirmity. I'm planning not to. And then everybody dies. That's life. We begin as a fertilized ovum. Then we become a zygote, an embryo, a baby, a toddler, a child, teenager, young adult. We grow old. Happens to all of us. And if one is self-realized, maybe you can choose your moment of death in Mahasamadhi. So today, I actually want to address something that will bring total happiness. And that is if we go beyond our conditioned mind, in the wisdom traditions, they say that there are 5 causes of human suffering. They're called the 5 kleshas: not knowing who we are, number 1; grasping and clinging, number 2; at that which is ephemeral, transient, number 3; recoiling from that which is ephemeral, transient, ungraspable, number 3, did I say not knowing your true self, not knowing fundamental reality? Number 4, identifying with the ego identity as our fixed identity. And number 5, number 4 was identifying with the ego. Number 5, the fear of death. So now let's actually go a little deeper into total happiness. Here are 2 phrases that are very pertinent that come from wisdom traditions: Vedanta, Kashmir Shaivism, non-dual traditions. The first is, what you see, you become. What you see, you become. And the second phrase is, the world is as we are. So what you see, you become. And the second phrase, the world is as we are. So let's begin with that. As a baby, everything you're exposed to, any name or form that you identify with, any name or form that you identify with, that you attach yourself, that actually turns you, which is infinite possibilities at all times, infinite creativity, infinite love, infinite joy at all times, because it's Sat Chit Ananda, truth of existence, Chit, awareness, Ananda. That's who we are before the conditioned mind. But then when you identify with experiences, whatever that experience is, sensations, images, feelings, thoughts, perceptual activities, then that conditions the mind into what we call the fragmented mind. And that fragmented mind is always looking for pleasure and avoiding pain, and is never at peace. Okay? So what we see, we become. Now, the other part of that phrase is, the world is as we are. So the world that we experience any moment, including our own physical body, because our physical body is part of the world, the world is as we are, which means the world is the projection of the fragmented separate mind. And fragmented separate mind lives in fear, constantly, again, looking for pleasure, avoiding pain, and ultimately getting fragmented and broken and unhappy. So once again, the world is as we are. What we see, we become, is the basis of the fragmented mind, which is like an algorithm. And people function as algorithms. We are all bundles of conditioned reflexes and nerves that are constantly being triggered by people and circumstance into predictable outcomes. And that's no way to live, because then you're at the mercy of every stranger on the street. Something good happens, you're happy. Something bad happens, you're unhappy. And so it goes. So given that, the word peace of mind is an oxymoron. There's no such thing. Okay, the mind is never at peace. The mind is what creates turbulence. Of course, a happy mind or positive thoughts is better than a negative mind, because every thought ultimately manifests. If you pay attention to a thought and you don't cling to it, or you don't obsess over it, or you don't grasp it, you have it in the stillness of being, and you release it, it's called sankalpa, then every thought organizes its own fulfillment. So, of course, happy thoughts organize events, situations, circumstances, relationships that make us relatively happy. I said relatively happy because whatever you're happy about, it could be taken away from you any moment. Okay, so happiness that is dependent on situations, circumstances, events, and people is not true happiness. True happiness is joy, what the wisdom traditions call Sat Chit Ananda. Sat means existence, pure existence, Chit, pure awareness, Ananda, pure bliss, or contentment, or joy. That is our privilege as spiritual beings, not as mental beings. So what's the key? Right this moment, what is interfering with your happiness or unhappy, or what is causing unhappiness right this moment, what is interfering with your happiness, what is interfering with your happiness, or what is causing a little bit of relative happiness is nothing other than a thought. Nothing other than a thought. Every experience, by the way, is interpreted as a thought. So, what's the key? The key is to recognize that you're not your thoughts, that you, the observer of the thought, is independent of the thought, intrinsically independent. So, anytime you have a disturbing thought, recognize, even a happy thought, recognize that you are not the thought. The thought is an interpretation of a perceptual activity that is happening to you right now. And if you just remind yourself, I'm not that thought, I'm the awareness in which thoughts come and go. And as soon as you remind yourself of that, then you notice the awareness that is having the thought. And then you abide in it. So that's simple. Any experience, observe it, whether it's a sensation, perception, image, feeling, thought, and remind yourself you're not the experience, but the awareness in which the experience comes and goes. Then notice that awareness or favor your attention to that awareness. Stay there, abide in it, and be free. Make it a habit. And that, and only that, will bring total happiness. That's all I wanted to say. And now I'm looking at some of your comments. And most of you seem to agree. Some are a little upset. Some say I don't look happy. Some say that all kinds of things which come from actually unhappiness. Anytime anybody attacks you, recognize that they're unhappy and send them your best wishes, your joy, your love, your prayers, and your healing. In fact, anytime anybody attacks you on anything, invite it, embrace it, and practice forgiveness. Forgiveness also means no judgment. So I'm waiting to see if there's any other thought that you have here. And okay, how do you deal with grief? Ruby asks, grief, you embrace grief. Grief has a life cycle. Many people, when they have grief, they first feel victimized, then they get angry, some get hostility, some have grievances, some feel frustrated, some feel just helpless, but some find meaning in grief. And meaning in grief is that no real meaningful experience ever disappears. Nobody ever disappears. They just transform. And so if it's the grief of a lost person, for example, somebody died, embrace the grief. Bring that person into your awareness, bring them in your heart, visualize them, embrace them, and feel joy and love for them. And in about a few months to a year, grief resolves and the relationship continues, not physically, but in another realm. So yes, fully feel your grief. What about unwanted feelings? Same thing. Observe the unwanted feelings, bring awareness to them, and know that unwanted feelings are there because you're denying them. When you embrace them and you bring awareness to them, they begin to heal. Okay, I think I've answered most of your questions and your comments. So thank you very much. And I send you all my love. Okay. Ruby Red, thank you. Somebody just said, I hate myself. No, you don't. You hate your conditioned, fragmented mind. And even that is not necessary. Just embrace it and know that all is well at all times. How can we control our thoughts? No, you can't. Controlling a thought is also a thought. So don't try to control it. If you watch it, it comes, it goes. You can't hold on to any thought anyway. All my best friends, and let me know. Give me any feedback, even if it's negative. I welcome it. All the best. God bless.